Hi everybody, this is Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yee-haw! We've had buffs, we've had nerfs, we've had slurfs, aren't real. Now that the patch has been out for a few days, I wanted to do a tier list based on what I've seen in game. This won't be an only ultra rank, master rank tier list, which I actually think is a very, very valuable tier list because that talks about what the highest rank players are playing. I wanted to make this one a little more accessible. So if you're still climbing the ranks, I think this list is relevant. However, once you get towards the top ranks, you will see why certain Pokemon find their way to the bottom of a list and certain Pokemon find their way to the top of a list. And it's just that when you have choices between a few Pokemon, you know, when you have a role that you're trying to fill, like a defender role, certain Pokemon are better than others, and that's kind of how a tier list works. So let's head on over to this tier list and see what we can do. Tier lists, of course, are also for fun. They kind of talk about what Pokemon are the most popular and the best in the game right now, but they also are just a fun way to look at what's going on and sort of theorize what might happen in top level play. Most all of the Pokemon that I talked about in my previous tier list were dead on for top level play. There was only one that I was slightly off on, and that was Cramorant. And strangely enough, I think it was because I like Cramorant so much that I didn't want to put it any higher, but we actually saw Cramorant get some great high level play. So let's take a look at our list here. We have C tier, B tier, A tier, S tier, and God tier. This is not going to be like my previous list where I have a no tier. So C tier Pokemon are viable if you're very good, and if you're climbing the ranks, they're definitely someone you can use. As you make your way up, even until you get up to Ultra, you could still kind of use whoever you want. B tier are Pokemon that are decent and maybe more situational. A tier are Pokemon that are pretty solid choices throughout. They just might have someone in their role that's better than them. That would probably be an S tier Pokemon. An S tier Pokemon is extremely good at their role. You see them picked often, and they really, really crush in games. And then God tier, as I always say, there can only be one God. And I put one Pokemon in God tier at a time in my list, just so I can say who I think right now is the absolute king Pokemon. The king of men, God, if you will. Let's see, we've got a lot of Pokemon to choose from here. Where do I want to start? Let's start with someone like Charizard. And the reason I want to start with Charizard is because Charizard recently got a buff. And I would say, if we were looking at this list pre-patch, if we were looking at this list pre-patch and it was Master Rank play, Charizard doesn't get much play at all. If it was not Master Rank play, I would say Charizard was hovering between a C and a B. He wasn't bad, he wasn't picked a ton, and you could do something a little bit better than Charizard a lot of the times. Right now, I'm gonna put Charizard in A right now. I think they actually really helped out Charizard. The amount of damage you can do simply because cooldowns have been reduced on certain moves, I think is pretty big. Right now, I think we could see more Charizard play because of this buff, and I think he can hang out in the A tier right now. Let's talk about someone who I think always has a tough time, which is Absol. Absol is interesting because Absol is either crushing it, you dominate early with Absol, you're getting these amazing ganks in lane, you're overfed, you're counter jungling, you're doing some incredible stuff, or you're kind of shut down, you don't get a good gank, you make it to the mid game, you're not extremely useful, you make it to the late game, you pick off Pokemon here and there. Absol's biggest problem is unless it gets super fed, which means, you know, getting a lot of KOs and taking out tons of wild Pokemon, having a very high level compared to others. Unless it's super fed, and unless it gets some really strong KOs early, which it can, Absol kind of falls off. Absol's a Pokemon that I really think an extremely good player. I've seen some great Absols, but in general, I have to put Absol in C tier right now. I don't think Absol competes, especially with the rest of the speedsters. You see Absol crushing it or really getting destroyed. So that's where I think Absol is right now. Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is amazing. I love Alolan Ninetales. I think it's just so good. It's so easy to play Alolan Ninetales. It's a bully in the lane. It evolves at level 4, and you can get Dazzling Gleam and just stun people. It's easy for getting KOs. It's easy for taking out wild Pokemon in the lane. Its Aurora Veil's amazing. I also see it paired sometimes with its, what is it, Blizzard or Avalanche or whatever, and Dazzling Gleam, and that's a great combo. Its basic attacks are brutal. I love Alolan Ninetales. I think Alolan Ninetales is an S tier Pokemon. I think you can put it in many team combinations. It's probably not, it's not your carry, your auto attack damage carry, but it's just a great Pokemon. Let's talk about, let's see, what do we got? We've got an attacker, an all-rounder, we got a speedster. Let's talk about a defender. Let's talk about Slowbro. Slowbro is probably my favorite defender right now. Slowbro also, a lot like Alolan Ninetales, evolves at level 4, and you get Surf, and you're just... you are so frustrating to deal with in lane with Surf. You're amazing. You take down all the wild Pokemon. You create this huge area where people can't do anything. You're tanky. I really like Slowbro. Right now, I feel like Slowbro is probably an A tier choice. It's not S tier. It's not the absolute best defender. I wouldn't say it just doesn't have the utility some others do, but its Surf is incredible. If you're good at landing telekinesis and you can grab enemy carries, you can really start to dominate with Slowbro. Just position yourself, grab their Greninja, Cinderace, Alolan Ninetales, get them in the air and let your team collapse on them. I think Slowbro is very good. I would say Slowbro is probably better than Charizard, even though I don't often order these like this. I kind of put people into sort of just the category. However, I could order it. It sounds kind of fun. So there you go. Slowbro, I think, is a solid A tier Pokemon. We don't have a support yet. Let's talk about Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime, there are 3 supports in the game right now: Eldegoss, Wigglytuff, and Mr. Mime. Eldegoss got a big nerf. Wigglytuff got a big buff. Mr. Mime wasn't touched, and that's because I think Mr. Mime is decent. We're not seeing so much Mr. Mime play that they have to do something about it. It's the only Pokemon picked, and he's also just not useless. The only problem I have with Mr. Mime is a similar problem I guess I have with Wigglytuff, even more now, is he feels like he kind of fits a dual role where he isn't as support as you would want. He kind of feels like almost a melee mage attacker controller support. It's a really cool Pokemon, and I think it has a pretty good skill ceiling. I like when someone plays Mr. Mime well. The problem is when you're filling roles inside of a game, you do have to decide if you've got 5 Pokemon to choose from and one of them is going to be a support. I think right now Mr. Mime is the last choice I would make. I don't think Mr. Mime is bad, but I just think between the 3, I wouldn't choose Mr. Mime because the others provide more to the team. I think Mr. Mime is hovering B right now. Part of me thinks Mr. Mime goes C, only because of its role, not because Mr. Mime is bad, but I'll keep Mr. Mime in B for now. So, given that we talked about another support, let's talk about Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff got a huge buff. Huge. Wigglytuff is so tanky right now. I love Wigglytuff. You are so disruptive in the lane. Your Sing and your Double Slap, it's so fun. You are so frustrating to deal with. I think Wigglytuff used to be a Pokemon that would hang in the B and C tier at times, and now Wigglytuff is without question A tier. There's a reality where Wigglytuff moves to S tier, and I think we didn't quite get there. And it's because of Eldegoss is the reason we didn't quite get Wigglytuff to S tier. I think on a coordinated team, a 5-man, you could definitely run Wigglytuff to huge success. The nice thing about Wigglytuff is he's so tanky, so tanky. He feels like a defender. It's a little bit of a criticism too, because that's Also, my criticism of Mr. Mime is that it feels like it's kind of filling a dual role, and just me personally, I often like Pokemon who fill one role way better than the others. I think that's usually the way to go. So, because of Eldegoss, and because of Eldegoss' nerf and where we see Eldegoss, this is why I keep Wigglytuff at A. And the reason is, I think Eldegoss still sits as an S tier Pokemon. Even with the nerf, I still think no one else heals like Eldegoss. No one else keeps the team alive like Eldegoss. No one drinks like Eldegoss. No one laughs like Eldegoss. No one something and something and something like Eldegoss. That's a Beauty and the Beast reference. So, Eldegoss got nerfed, but still so dang good. It's so good. I would love to see what happens, tournament play, if people actually pick Eldegoss. I think they still would. From playing it, I don't feel like it's been nerfed to the point where it can't be used. It's tricky. They've actually done a really good job with nerfs and buffs in this, because this patch feels the most balanced so far in the game. And sometimes you find a buff or a nerf completely destroys a Pokemon, or it makes something way, way, way too good. And right now, I don't think they've done that. I think Wigglytuff has become an A tier Pokemon, and I think Eldegoss, while still sitting S tier, has gotten ratcheted down a little bit, maybe in a way that was necessary for the game. So I do think they've done a really nice job with this patch. I still think Eldegoss sits S tier because it's really the only one that can give you that kind of amazing sustain in a team fight. It's still my go-to support, even though my heart is with Wigglytuff, my head is with Eldegoss, and my soul is with Cramorant. Let's talk about Cramorant. So before, on my last tier list, I had Cramorant in B tier, and I didn't really want to have Cramorant in B tier. It's just that I love Cramorant, and I don't want to push my love of Cramorant on the world and be wrong just because I think it's so amazing. Cramorant has seen some really nice play in higher ranked games. I know it did get a little bit of a nerf, but it's Whirlpool nerf. You get rid of it pretty quickly. So I think right now Cramorant is an A tier Pokemon. I still don't think it makes its way into S tier, but using Cramorant correctly, especially how you zone people out with its Unite move, if your team can support you. The tough thing about Cramorant's Unite move, Cramorant players will know what I'm talking about here. You either pop your Unite move, everybody just leaves. You pop your Unite move, and the enemy team just collapses on you. Your allies decide to leave. They're nowhere to be found. They let you be the front line, and then they knock you out. Or you pop your Unite move, and it is devastating. You make sure that you capture whatever objective you're on. You get multiple KOs from it. So I think Cramorant works best with a coordinated team, and you could say that about anyone, but I spend most of my time in solo queue, which is why, I'd say 90% of my gameplay is all solo queue, which is why Cramorant sometimes can feel underwhelming, because if your team decides not to fight in that moment, then Cramorant is just kind of useless. Or if your team decides not to secure the Dreadnought when you pop your Unite move, you're just going, what is happening? But I do think Cramorant's really amazing, A tier. I think Surf's incredible. Surf's incredible on every Pokemon, which I think is so funny. Let's go for another attacker. Let's talk about Pikachu. Pikachu, last time I put Pikachu in A tier, and right now I actually think I'm going to switch Pikachu and Cramorant. Pikachu is one of my favorite Pokemon to play. I think its Electro Ball is awesome. I love its stun. I think the only problem with Pikachu is Pikachu goes, oh, it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great. It's kind of underwhelming, and now we're around the Zapdos fight. So that's the big problem with Pikachu, is that as the game continues to move forward, you start to see Pikachu begin to sort of peter off in its usefulness. So unfortunately, Pikachu is amazing early, and solo queue I actually still think Chew's really good, because even if you have a bad lane partner, you're doing a-okay with Pikachu. It is really hard to get Pikachu off his game. But I think right now I'd have to put Pikachu in the B tier, just because there are other attackers that fill a similar role, like Cramorant, that I think are a bit better. Let's talk about another attacker that I'm really having a hard time place this one, and that's Gardevoir. So, oh, big sip of coffee here. Yeehaw, baby. I can't believe I started doing yeehaw. So, Gardevoir is interesting. Here's what's interesting about Gardevoir is that Gardevoir is amazing late game, but boy, it's hard to get it there. It has a really tough early game. It reminds me of another Pokemon that we'll talk about in a little bit. In the hands of an absolute pro, of an artisan, of one of the best in the world, Gardevoir, I assume, could be completely incredible. But right now, I would actually... Gardevoir hovers A and B for me. And again, the real problem here is I feel like every game I either play as Gardevoir or have a Gardevoir on my team, if we're crushing it and that Pokemon can get fed and leveled up, we're in a great spot. If not, which I swear it's a coin flip, we're in such a horrible spot, because there's so many Pokemon you'd rather have. I'd rather have an underleveled Pikachu than an underleveled Gardevoir. I think I'd rather have Cramorant in general than Gardevoir. So I honestly think this Pokemon hangs out in B tier right now, because the swings with it are so hard. It's either it's crushing it or it's really far behind. And when it's far behind, it has some trouble. The nice thing about this, which probably makes it better than Pikachu, is it's late game. So when Gardevoir gets there late game, it gets really incredible. Now, if you play Gardevoir and you are good at making sure you don't get KO'd and you get all the wild Pokemon you need and you get fed, I think you're going to be in a really great spot. But right now, I feel like Gardevoir hangs out in the B tier. Let's talk about, we're on attackers right now, so let's keep talking about attackers. Let's talk about Cinderace. Cinderace got nerfed. Almost everything about Cinderace got nerfed except for its Pyro Ball, which was not the common kit for Cinderace. Cinderace is a Blaze Kick Feint Pokemon. And Cinderace got nerfed. Its attack got nerfed, its Feint got nerfed, its Blaze Kick got nerfed, and it's still an S tier Pokemon. I still think Cinderace is S tier. They didn't stop it. What they've done, and it's something I really like, is they've made other attackers viable, but still I think Cinderace is an S tier. Now, if you remember last time, I said Cinderace was God tier, but I'm not saying that right now. Right now I'm saying it's S tier. Before, it was the one and only Pokemon. It's still kind of, at times, the one and only Pokemon. But right now I think it's S tier. I think it's incredible. It's probably the top of S tier, if I'm being honest. It's just so good. And I think Eldegoss may be above Alolan Ninetales. Even though, again, the order here, don't stress too much about this, because I'm not. What it has done is let us really get a look at Greninja. Greninja, I feel like, is a really cool Pokemon, its surf is amazing, it's got incredible mobility, it performs well in the jungle. The only problem with Greninja is Cinderace. Cinderace is better than Greninja. It's been way better than Greninja. But right now, with Cinderace getting nerfed a little bit, I feel like Greninja goes from someone who you'd go, well, I'd never pick Greninja over Cinderace, to very competitive right now. I see a lot of Cinderace play, and I think that's really, really cool, which is why I like this patch so much, because they've made so many more Pokemon viable. So I think Greninja becomes an A tier choice for me. You could swap out Cinderace for Greninja. However, I will say I still think Cinderace is a better choice. I think Greninja makes itself into the A category, probably one of the top of the A's. I bet you're gonna see a lot of high-ranked play try to figure out if Greninja really can replace Cinderace. Let's see. Crustle. Do we want to do Crustle? We haven't done some of the speedsters here. Let's talk about speedsters. Speedsters are in this category where they are seemingly designed to be inside the jungle, right? But we have other Pokemon that do extremely well in the jungle, like Greninja, Cinderace, Charizard does well in the jungle, and it puts our speedsters in a weird position. I said this last patch, or last tier list, that I think the speedsters are a bit underwhelming compared to some of the other roles that could also be in the jungle. So let's put them out here. We've got Gengar, Zeraora, Talonflame, and I've already ranked Absol. I think Absol is absolutely the worst speedster right now. Again, when Absol's crushing it, they're crushing it. So I know some of you out there are going, my Absol's amazing. I believe you. I've seen incredible Absols, but I think really, really hit and miss from Absol and a huge fall off late game. Gengar got the biggest nerf, obviously. Everyone was saying Gengar was S tier. I think Gengar was still a bit of a, noob stomper. It was something that would really destroy newer players to the game, but I don't disagree that Gengar was very, very good. I just feel like in higher ranked play, I rarely saw Gengar. Gengar, and Zeraora, I feel like we're on a similar plane, but now that Gengar's been nerfed, we have the Shadow Ball build, which is possible for laning, but not really great for the jungle, I don't think, right now. I think what they've done is effectively drop Gengar to a B tier. From my opinion, Gengar was A tier. Some people would say it was S, which I totally get, because again, lower ranked play, it was without question the best Pokemon in the game. You could just eat everybody up. Higher ranked play, I think it was maybe closer to an A or a B at times, and right now I think it's solidly a B. Solidly a B. And the reason it's a B is because I think both Zeraora and now Talonflame are legit. Zeraora has always been a great Pokemon. I might get a little squirrely and say with more play, Talonflame might be making its way into S tier. I would love to see it, but with Talonflame's buffs, I think Talonflame has become very, 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 very viable. I really like Talonflame. So, and I think they really didn't do anything to Zeraora that's hurt Zeraora too much. They nerfed Gengar, and I think that's dropped him down. They buffed Talonflame, and that's pulled Talonflame basically from a C tier all the way to an A tier. Because I think before, Talonflame was sort of unpickable in the grand scheme of the three of them. But yeah, I would say Talonflame right now is a solid A tier pick, and maybe with more play, it could make its way to S tier. Zeraora is still incredible. Really, really good, solid A tier Pokemon. And with the nerfs, I think Gengar moves down to B tier. So that's where I see our speedsters right now, is Talonflame and Zera in the A, Gengar because of the nerfs in the B, and Absol still unfortunately in the C tier. Ooh, we have an attacker we didn't get to talk about. Venusaur. Venusaur is a Pokemon who needed a buff desperately, and it got one, thank goodness. Venusaur used to be solidly C. Venusaur, you would never pick Venusaur, not because it's absolutely horrible, but just because you could, instead of Venusaur, you could take Cinderace, Ninetales, Greninja, Cramorant, Gardevoir, Pikachu. You could take anybody instead of Venusaur. I still think that Venusaur probably hangs out in B instead of A, and my reasoning is similar to Gardevoir. You need to really power up Venusaur before it's extremely useful. It's long range, it's gonna get you some incredible snipes with its Solar Beam, and I think similar to Gardevoir, an amazing Venusaur player is gonna crush it, but otherwise, I think it's always going to be a decent choice. Decent. A lot of these Pokemon right now, I feel like are really decent choices, but they're a little outclassed. I would rather have Cramorant than Venusaur. I just think Cramorant clears out units a little bit better. I like Cramorant's Unite move better, but Venusaur has solidly made its way out of a bottom tier never pick Pokemon. I really do think so. Let's see. We've got our all-rounders here. I already have one all-rounder on the board, which is Charizard. So let's put these guys on the board here. Machamp was, I think, an A or S tier Pokemon. Submission's amazing. It's really hard to get away from Machamp. It can initiate some incredible team fights. It did get nerfed a little bit, and I think that helps Machamp rest solidly in A tier. Probably better than Charizard still, I would say, but I think Machamp now hangs out solidly in A because someone who just can't be beat still hangs out in S tier as an all-rounder, and that's Lucario. Doesn't mean you couldn't use both. You could have, I've seen teams with Lucario and Machamp on them, but Lucario is still so good. It's a tanky all-rounder that also is a brutal assassin. Its abilities are really incredible. I've been playing it a decent amount since the patch, and I don't feel like anything's dropped off. I know some people have said it got a nerf, but I don't know. I'm still going around the battlefield, taking people out pretty easily with Lucario. So right now, I think Lucario is the S tier all-rounder choice. And that leaves us Garchomp. And Garchomp, unfortunately, hangs out with Absol, I think, in C tier. Yeah, I think it does. It's similar to Gardevoir in that it needs to get to Garchomp before it's incredible. Very low-ranked play, I think you're going to see Garchomp crush. But the higher rank you get, it's too easy to shut Garchomp down right now. It's too easy to beat him early in lane. If anything, I'd want Garchomp in the jungle. But it's too easy to beat Garchomp early in the lane. It takes a long time for Garchomp to become Garchomp and get really, really strong. And as soon as Garchomp's in Garchomp mode and going crazy, just back away from it for a couple seconds. And then all of a sudden its attack speed's gone. You'd have to be in a situation where you're trading with Garchomp. The wonderful thing about Garchomp when you're playing solo queue and you're climbing the ranks, and the reason when early it's like really good, is because sometimes your team is not going for objectives, they're not going for Dreadnought, they're not going for Rotom. Sometimes you have to be at Zapdos alone. Garchomp can solo all of these Pokemon. All of the objective Pokemon, Garchomp can solo all of them. But once you get into higher ranked play, you are very, very rarely, if ever, going to be at Dreadnought all by yourself while the team is not concerned with anything else. So because of that, I think unfortunately Garchomp hangs out in C tier. I do think it's better than Absol, but I just think it's a Pokemon that I believe needs some sort of buff. I think it needs to be buffed a little early on so it can make it to Garchomp and be more powerful. We have Crustle and we have Snorlax. Obviously, one of these Pokemon makes it into God tier. And if you've been playing the game for a little while, I think you know who it is, but let's talk about these two. Crustle's pretty amazing. The mobility on Crustle is incredible. The way it can push people around with X-Scissor is extremely good. And it has great attack. It really makes its way around the battlefield. And I'm trying to be as kind as possible to Crustle because the only issue with Crustle is that it is in a defender tier with two Pokemon that I think are better. I think Slowbro and Snorlax are better. And because of that, I think Crustle hangs out in the B tier. Not a bad choice. And actually, when I see two defender comps with Crustle on it, I really, really like it. But I don't think it's the one. I really, really don't. And it's because Slowbro controls the battlefield better with Surf, and I just think there's more utility there. And now on to Snorlax, which I believe right now is the God tier Pokemon. Snorlax is too good. Block is too good. The way it pushes people and then stuns them briefly, I don't. If they change Block, if they change it to where Block just pushes and the stun is like gone, I think Snorlax drops considerably. But Snorlax with Block, it's just too good. I think it's the best Pokemon in the game. It's the most useful Pokemon to have on a team. It's going to change fights more than anyone. It's going to keep your squishy people alive. If you play a good Snorlax, I think it's the best thing you can have on a team right now. Basically, if you have Snorlax and you have Cinderace, a fed Cinderace. If you could just keep that fed Cinderace alive, and you can have Snorlax move everyone around, get enemies exactly where you want them, keep them away from your squishier people. It's hard to lose. It's hard to lose with that combination. So right here, this is kind of where I see most of the Pokemon in Unite after the patch. Basically what happened is Gengar went down, Venusaur went up, and I think Charizard went up as well. I think Machamp could hang out in S tier, but I think he goes down. Greninja becomes way more viable because Cinderace got nerfed a little bit. This is where I think things hang out right now. Again, any of these Pokemon are viable for play in general. You could be the best Garchomp player in the world, and you're gonna crush me, I guarantee it. The best Garchomp player is gonna make me look like an absolute fool. But I think for the most part, this is where a lot of it shakes out after the patch. And now we get to do the funnest part of the video, and this is where I move a lot of these Pokemon around, so people who just skip to the end have no idea what I'm talking about. You can hang out with me and have some fun while I pretend to talk about Pokemon who are just in weird places here. So I'm moving a lot of things around. Let's see what I can figure out here. I'm gonna put Gardevoir is gonna be God tier. Pikachu's down here in C. I'll say Mr. Mime is, I'll say Eldegoss got moved all the way down to C with Cinderace, and I'll say Wigglytuff's God tier. So now here we are. Basically, without question, Gardevoir is the best Pokemon in the game. Without question. Its range is incredible. Once you are able to hit with multiple future sights, it's done. The battle is done. And you pair that with a Wigglytuff, the new best support, because as we know, Eldegoss is terrible now, just terrible. This is game over right here. And then you take Talonflame. I might even move Talonflame to God tier, and I'd also probably put Machamp in God tier. If I had a team, this is it right here. This is the 5. Talon in the jungle, Machamp and Crustle in the bottom lane, Wigglytuff and Gardevoir in the top lane. So there you go. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you very much, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.